there, it's Christy with the Chirp YouTube channel. After a little hiatus, I am back to completely finish out our sensory series that I've been doing over the past couple of months with a video about sensory avoiders and how we can help them to become more functional if this sensory avoiding behavior is preventing them from fully engaging with the world or with other people. All of the other videos in this series were about sensory seeking behaviors because those are the ones that are kind of the trickiest to tease out. In this video, however, I'd like to talk about the sensory avoiders. And this is not hard to see in a child. We can all see when a child won't put his hands in the sand or can't handle running water or things like that. Goodness, I hope a child could handle running water. I've never met a child who couldn't, but it was the first thing that came to mind. We all have some areas of our lives where we need to make ourselves slightly uncomfortable in order to make progress, in order to grow as human beings. There is always an area of life where we need to be growing, and it's definitely the same for children. Children cannot just be left to their own devices to do what they please, to eat what they please, to sleep when they want and only when they want, to play all day long, to avoid going to school. None of those choices is good for a child. And it's not good for a child to avoid sensory inputs that are unpleasant. I do understand that these sensory inputs can feel painful. There are certain sensory inputs that feel painful to me. I have some sensory issues. Our job isn't to cause children pain, or indeed ourselves pain. Our job is to expose the child, or ourselves, to this less than pleasant, non-preferred stimulus in a calm and playful way, and to slowly increase the amount of time or the amount of contact with that stimulus that the child is able to handle without sending him or her over the edge into a meltdown or without causing pain. Of course, we can't tell exactly how much is causing a child pain, and anytime a child expresses displeasure does not mean that we're causing the child pain. When it comes to food sensitivities, food avoiding, I want to definitely tell you, please, please, please get a food therapist involved. If you have already done that and it didn't work, as in your child still has a very restricted amount of foods that he or she is eating, try a different feeding therapist. If it didn't work, get a different therapist, because it's very, very important that kids get all the nutrition that they need to their brains. That's going to include eating foods that are not white. That's going to include eating foods that are vegetables, because we can't build a healthy brain without vegetables. We can't do it. Kids need to eat vegetables. We need to eat vegetables, as well as other healthy foods. Beans, for example. A lot of kids don't like the texture, don't like the taste, whatever it is. That's something we need to work on. Legumes are the one thing that is associated with all of the long-living populations. All of the blue zones eat beans. We want to eat beans. We want our kids to live long, healthy lives. In any case, whether it is feeding related or not, when you have a sensory avoiding child, it helps to have a specialist on your team with you, because it's difficult to know and to track exactly how much exposing to this unpleasant stimulus you're doing. And it's also difficult for a layperson to identify the different areas that might need help in this area. So please talk to some sort of a sensory specialist. Usually this is an occupational therapist with extra training in sensory stuff. So make sure it's not just your run-of-the-mill occupational therapist who works on fine motor skills, because that person isn't going to be the most informed and the best qualified to help your child in this area. If you are unable to find such a person in your city, in your state, or in your country, then I'm going to give you some thoughts about how you can work on this. My aunt has a grandchild who experienced some very severe sensory avoiding behavior as a child. She had restricted food input because she refused so many different textures. She didn't like to play outside because she didn't like the grass, she didn't like the dirt, she didn't like the mud, she didn't like the sand. She didn't like much of anything. And very slowly, in a playful, loving, and calm manner, my aunt exposed her to these things over and over and over in non-threatening ways, made them fun, and was able to get her granddaughter to be much more flexible and to have nearly typical responses to these types of sensory inputs. I do have to say that I don't believe that that granddaughter has actually been diagnosed with any sort of a developmental issue. So these things work slower usually with kids who have. If a child has something such as an autism spectrum disorder, these sensory preferences tend to run a little deeper, and they tend to take a little bit longer to help and to change. The first thing you want to do is identify one sensory preference that is hindering your child the most. I'm going to use myself as the example, and I don't like the feel of metal. It really bothers me. This is a sensory thing. I don't like the feel of it, how it feels when I touch it. I don't like the smell of it. I don't like how my hands smell after I hold keys or change. I always want to wash my hands immediately after I touch coins or keys or other types of metal things, like if I hold a hammer, like if I hold a wrench, or if I always want to come in, I always want to wash my hands immediately after I touch coins or after I touch my keys or something like that that is made out of that metal. There are reasons behind a lot of these sensory preferences. In my case, I'm wondering, maybe my body knows that I have a serious metal allergy. I only wear gold jewelry because every other kind of jewelry gives me a huge itchy rash very quickly, and it's very uncomfortable. It lasts for a long time. I have very sensitive skin in that manner. So perhaps my body knows this and is telling me, hey, don't hang out with metal too much because it's gonna hurt you. It doesn't really matter why though. It's hard to get around in life without. And honestly, this preference doesn't actually harm me. I'm able to get to my car. I'm able to use my keys to get in and out of the house. I'm able to use change to pay people. It's not really a huge deal. It's not hindering my life in any way or my goals. However, it is a good example because I can measure the time that I touch the item I don't like to touch, and afterwards I can measure the amount of time and increase the amount of time that I have to wait to wash my hands after I touch something I don't particularly like to touch. And these are the two ways that you want to measure what you're doing with your child or with a student as well. You want to think about the amount of time the child actually interacts with the unpleasant stimulus, and you want to think about the amount of time that the child keeps the mud on his hands, doesn't go to the bathroom to wash off the sticky glue. Whatever it is that is the unpleasant stimulus, there's the actual interacting time, and then there's the sort of lingering effects of the actual interaction time that we can also measure. Once you find the area that you'd like to work on, begin by writing down how the child interacts with this sensory input in the present moment. Date it and write down, let's interact with this piece of metal. How long can I hold the coins before I start feeling really like I want to get rid of them, like I want to put them down? How much time can I hold the keys before I feel like I want to put these down and wash my hands? I'm going to use as an example today a little friend who hates sticky things. He doesn't like glue, he doesn't like tape, he doesn't like stickers. All of those issues are unpleasant to him. Now, I have lots of stickers in my classroom, and we use glue sticks almost every week because we do lots of fun art projects. It's a problem for him to find art unpleasant because he's missing out on fun, he's missing out on the opportunity to practice his fine motor skills, and he's missing out on the opportunity to participate with his peers doing something enjoyable. So there's a social aspect that he's missing also. We don't want it to be unpleasant. At the beginning, when I first met this child, he wouldn't sit at the table with us if we were using tape or glue. We would take his art project to a different table, and we would just put one piece of tape on at a time, talking to him about how it's okay, look, it comes right off. It's just tape, not scary. Look at that, it's all done. Yay, art was so fun today. We really talked up how fun it was and how enjoyable it is to be involved in a project that comes up with this wonderful result. He was not involved in this process at all, except for watching and crying a little bit. But it wasn't painful, we didn't force anything, it was fine. Eventually he was willing to sit at the table with us, and that was a great step in the right direction. And then, as we continued to calmly talk about how great he was doing, about how tape is not scary, we would hold the tape, we would put the tape on the paper, and then it was his turn to pat the tape on the non-sticky side of the tape, if you know what I mean. So we'd put the tape piece down and he would just pat it on the top. And it still made him nervous, he still got a funny face. Every once in a while he would have a little tear, but he did it fine. There were no traumatic occurrences that happened during this process. And then it was his turn to hold the piece of tape on the very tippy tip of his finger, poke it down, and then pat it down. And I'm talking about over the space of months. Then we worked on where we put the pieces of tape along the edge of the table, and he had to pick them off and put them on. You can see how very slowly we experiment with a new method that involves a little bit more interaction with the unpleasant input. And if he's able to do it, that's fabulous. If he's not, we back up to the previous step and try again in a week, in 2 weeks, however long we decide to try again. It's always kind of a back and forth process. Eventually he's able to do tape all by himself now. He's able to do stickers, and he is able to work with glue and paint that get on his hands. And just this last Sunday he said, Miss Christy, my hands are sticky, I got glue on my hands. And I said, it's all right, we'll get it off in just a minute. Here, let me get you a hand wipe. And I was delayed a little bit in the process. And when I eventually got him the hand wipe, he hadn't cried at all, he hadn't had a meltdown, he had been able to handle himself, knowing that he'd be able to get the glue off very soon. That's the kind of progress that we want to see in this sort of a process. We don't want to cause the child such distress that tape becomes a trauma word every time we talk about it. We also don't want the child to get away with never using tape because he was scared of tape when he was 3. Neither one of those extremes is going to be ultimately the best for that child. And it wouldn't be the best for me either. Yes, there are certain things I don't like doing. Most of us don't like exercise. Most of us don't like eating healthy. It's not healthy for us to not work towards those goals, even though they make us uncomfortable, even though they stretch us. Even though, honestly, let me share a secret with you. I started a new little workout routine because I have a bad sprained ankle with damaged ligaments and tendons and a little fracture. It's healing. I'm getting there. I have to go to physical therapy now for a month, so wish me luck on that. But because I'm not able to run, I'm not able to ride my exercise bike, I'm not able to do standing up really cardio exercises, I've started a new workout routine that builds muscle but doesn't require a lot of standing up, and that doesn't require, well, there's no cardio involved really. I do end up sweating, but I'm gonna have to wait on the cardio for right now, I think. Unless I can do it like upside down on my hands, and I don't think that's very safe for me at the moment. Well, what I'm saying is, doing this routine a couple days ago, I actually cried a little bit because it was really hard and kind of painful. My muscle was burning and I was thinking, I just wish I could stop. But we do these things because we know they make us better people. We know that it's important for us to have goals and to work towards our goals and to continually grow. We want to learn new skills. We want to be healthier. We want to be more functional. We want to be happier. And achieving goals actually works on all those things. It makes us happier. It makes us healthier. We feel more confident. We have more self-esteem when we accomplish goals that are hard. And I want your child, I want all of my students to feel that deep sense of satisfaction because they've accomplished a goal that used to be hard for them. So we work on all these things and we celebrate every step. Every time I notice a child has done something that is difficult for him or for her, I tell the child how great she is, how wonderful he is. I am so proud that you did a hard thing. I know it's hard for you to say nice words to other kids, and you did it anyway. I know it's hard for you to wait to wash your hands when you've been playing in the shaving cream, but you did it. I am proud of you. You are accomplishing great things. You're doing things that are hard, and I am proud of you. You should be proud of you too. That is the kind of progress we want to see in the area of what we might call exposure therapy. We all need to be exposing ourselves to things that are difficult. Our kids need to be exposed to things that are difficult. If kids' lives are too easy, they don't build the muscles they're going to need to face a challenging and difficult world. We can prepare them for that by giving them strong muscles and showing them that they can do things that are hard for them. I hope this video was helpful to you, gave you some good ideas, gave you something to chew on as you go forward into this week. Thank you for watching. Thank you for doing your absolute best to be a voice of love and compassion and growth in the lives of the children around you. I appreciate you, and I'm glad that you were here today. Have a great day. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.